There's a kind of pain that goes deeper than betrayal. It's not just heartbreak, it's psychological disorientation, the kind that creeps in slowly as you begin to question your own instincts, your own memories, and even your own worth. When your truth is twisted, when your intuition is dismissed, and when you begin to question your own sanity. So this post today, it won't be for everyone, probably a small percent of you, but it is for those who have found themselves in that disorientating space, caught in the web of someone who chooses to weaponize vulnerability and connection. This is for anyone, man or woman, who has ever been blindsided, gaslit, or undermined by a distorted form of feminine energy. And to be very, very clear, I'm not referring to women who have acted out of pain and trauma and emotional triggers, because we all carry wounds and we have all made those mistakes in judgment, in action or reaction. That's just human. That's the evolving and growing stage. Today's program about the distorted feminine energy, that is not this. What I'm talking about is something darker, more calculated, kind of feminine energy that doesn't stem from trauma, but from choice. A woman who knows exactly what she's doing, who manipulates, who deceives, and who destroys, not out of confusion, not out of wounding, but out of strategy. You see, she's often charming, seductive, beautiful, but she's also spiritually hollow. She often plays the victim when it benefits her. She spins truths to divide, and she smiles while planting the seed of chaos. She moves without a moral compass. She sees people not as humans, but as pieces on a chessboard to be used or to be discarded. This is the distorted feminine. Like I said, she's usually beautiful, seductive, strategic, overly charming, and she often masks as something angelic, nurturing, or innocent, while quietly orchestrating chaos. And if you've been on the receiving end of this, you know how severely destabilizing it can be. The confusion, the self-doubt, the feeling that something is off, but being unable to prove it. The sabotage, it happens in gentle whispers, in omissions, in subtle games that make you question your own reality. And if you have never encountered it, this may sound exaggerated or dramatic, but for those who have lived through it, who have endured it, they know it's real and they know how damaging it is. So why does this happen? This kind of sabotage, it often happens to those who carry some form of light and kindness. People who are deeply empathetic, spiritually attuned, and who are actively working to grow into their higher selves. So if you're someone who's super kind, who's maybe on an awakening journey, maybe someone who's anchoring truth, integrity, or inner wisdom into your life, then you may unintentionally attract these individuals that are operating from this distorted feminine energy. It's not a reflection of your weakness. It's often because your presence, it disrupts their illusion of control. And if you do endure a journey with this distorted feminine energy, think of it as an initiation through the fire, one that forces you to refine your discernment, to trust your intuition more deeply, and to build unshakable boundaries. It's literally a fire walk into self-trust. Because when everything outside of you is distorted, when nobody around you believes you, you're left with only one compass, and that is your inner truth. So while there's no exact number to define how many women embody this kind of distorted energy, the traits, the emotional manipulation, the passive aggression, the calculation, the covert control, they are more common than we might like to admit. These behaviours, they don't always come from diagnosable disorders like narcissism or sociopathy. More often, they emerge from unhealed trauma, from generational conditioning, and from dysfunctional role modelling. That does not make their behaviour excusable, because quite honestly, most of us have endured trauma and pain. But in a world that has historically disempowered women, many were taught to survive not through their voice or through their own self-empowerment, but through emotional influence, through subtle control, or through learned helplessness. And when this wounding goes unchecked, it forms what we call the distorted feminine, a persona that looks soft and supportive on the surface, but beneath it carries resentment, anger, calculation, manipulation, deceptiveness, and a deep fear of vulnerability. Some of these women, they were never shown a healthy model of feminine power, and others, they learned early that honesty didn't keep them safe, and that performance brought more reward than truth did. And yes, in some cases, there are deeper psychological disorders at play, but no matter the source, the impact on those who they target is profoundly damaging and often invisible to the outside world. So can the distorted feminine energy heal? Yes, it can, but unfortunately, most will not have the capacity. You see, healing the distorted feminine, it requires a level of honesty and self-awareness that they just aren't ready to face. It means surrendering the mask. It means confronting the envy, the need for control, and the fear of softness. And it means releasing manipulation as a survival strategy and choosing vulnerability, truth, and embodied self-power instead. So it's not an easy path, but should they choose it, it's a transformational one. The distorted feminine, she is not inherently evil. It is simply a fragmented expression of power. And with enough courage, a woman who finds herself trapped in this kind of energy, she can choose to rise, she can choose to alchemize it. She can become the divine feminine who stands strong and clear in her truth, soft in her presence, fierce in her boundaries, and deeply aligned with unconditional love. But until that healing happens, the distorted feminine's energy, it remains dangerous to those who carry the light, to those who she wants to target. And what matters more than any statistic or clinical diagnosis is this. It's that your experience with this distorted energy is real, and whether it shows up in 1% of women or 10%, whether it came from a diagnosed disorder or a deep emotional wounding, the harm that you endured through her is valid. And you don't need her to have a diagnosis or a statistic to justify your pain. The truth is you lived it, and that is enough. You were exposed to a form of feminine energy that was weaponized, and whether that came from a full-blown personality disorder or a deeply unhealed, wounded feminine, the impact, it is still real. But the more empowering thing is to question yourself. What in me allowed me to stay? And question yourself not in a self-blaming way, but in a soul-reclaiming way. And also ask yourself, what parts of me are rising now that this has been named? So if you are someone who's been targeted, let this be your confirmation. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You're not paranoid. You saw what you saw. And if you have never experienced this, but you know someone who has, please believe them. Because sometimes the most dangerous wounds are the ones that no one else can see. So why is the distorted feminine, why is she so dangerous? The distorted feminine, she is the shadow feminine in its most toxic form. No, she's not raw, she's not wild and wounded. Instead, she is cold, she is manipulative, she's willful. She's not reacting, she's calculating. And the damage that she leaves behind her is often invisible to the onlooker because it's psychological, it's emotional, and it's spiritual. But those who have been caught in her web, they know exactly what it feels like. The exhaustion, the confusion, the shame, and that slow loss of self-trust. So if you have survived this, I want you to remind yourself that you are not crazy and that you are not alone. The truth is that this kind of experience, it causes deep trauma within. It also causes a degree of post-traumatic stress. So today we are going to start that healing process together by identifying the behavior and calling it out for what it actually is. Because calling it what it is healing. Yes, calling it can feel taboo. It might even feel a little brutal, especially in a world that still struggles to hold women accountable when the women weaponize their energy. But naming this distortion, it is not about blame. It's about clarity, it's about sovereignty, and it's about your own healing. It's about reclaiming your voice after it has been silenced by that subtle warfare. And before we go any further, I want to remind you that you are not weak for having trusted so openly and so beautifully. You are not broken for having believed. And you are now wiser, and that your truth is more powerful, and you are a little more sovereign and stronger. So for a long time, I did not have the language to explain what was happening to me. I couldn't point it to one clear thing. It was 1,000 tiny cuts, impossible to name, but also impossible to ignore. All I knew was how I felt. I felt rattled, I felt exhausted, I felt destabilized. I was sabotaged in ways that felt invisible to everyone else. I told myself it was just my sensitivity. Maybe I was too much, too reactive, too emotional. I tried to take accountability. I blamed my imagination, and I also considered perhaps I was reading into things and that maybe I was just paranoid. But the truth is, my body knew, and it did not let me lie to myself. My body felt the betrayal long before my mind could make any sense of it. You see the tension that I felt in my stomach, the heavy weight in my chest, the confusion in my nervous system, and yet my mind, it just kept gaslighting me. Don't be dramatic. Women don't behave like this. This only happens in the movies. So I silenced the signals. I tried to normalize what was anything but normal. But the truth has a way of rising. Slowly, painfully, it begins to reveal itself. Not all at once, but in pieces that were too sharp to ignore. You see, when the distorted feminine comes into your life, it often takes years to start to put the pieces together. And so by the time I finally saw the full picture, the damage, it had already sunk deep. My mind, my body, and my soul, they were drowning in the venom of her games, the fear, the confusion, the erosion of my own self that comes from being slowly unraveled by someone who hides their cruelty behind charm. The truth is, it wasn't until a full year after the toxic game ended that the full weight of what I went through truly hit me. You see, that's the thing about psychological manipulation. It often doesn't register until long after the dust has settled. And I consider myself one of the fortunate ones because I found the courage to cut through the web and to end it, to walk away, even when everything in me was still entangled, even when everybody around me thought I was the problem. But my heart aches for those who haven't yet found that trust within themselves, for those who are still stuck in her web, questioning their own reality, too afraid to call the game for what it is. And if that is you, then this post is most certainly for you, because my hope is that if it plants a seed of strength, of clarity, and of self-trust within you, enough to remind you that you are not powerless, you never were, you're not crazy. And in the spiritual world, we talk a lot about the divine feminine. She's soft, she's nurturing, she's intuitive, she's powerful in her groundedness. But we don't speak enough about her toxic shadow, about what happens when the wounded, the unconscious feminine energy chooses to manipulate, to undermine, and to poison the light. That distortion, it wears many faces: passive aggressiveness, martyrdom, backhanded compliments, manipulation masked as sweetness, spiritual bypassing, or calculated sabotage that is masked as support. Encountering distorted feminine energy isn't just emotionally confusing, it's spiritually disorientating. It often arrives in a beautiful disguise. Often it starts out nurturing, intuitive, magnetic. She may appear soft, maybe even a little wounded. You feel pulled in by her empathy, by the connection, by something that feels sacred. But slowly, over time, the undercurrent shifts and you find yourself tangled in contradictions. What she said, it no longer matches what she does. She praises you in public, but punishes you in private. She offers you intimacy, but then uses your vulnerability as ammunition. You start to feel drained, not just emotionally, but energetically, like your light is dimming and you don't know why. This version of the feminine, she doesn't wound accidentally. She wounds intentionally. She doesn't seek healing. She seeks control. She may use emotion to manipulate, seduction to destabilize, or victimhood to gain power. It's not the sacred feminine. It's not even the shadowed feminine or the wounded feminine. It's the shadow that is unclaimed, that is unaccountable, that is often disguised as self-empowerment. Sometimes she might even look like the light, but something will always feel off within you. And over time, you begin to doubt yourself, your instincts, your memory. You wonder if you're overreacting. You're wondering if you heard things wrong, if you're imagining things. Now this is by design. You see, the confusion is her control. You may withdraw from people that you love. You stop trusting yourself. And you feel this constant sense of unease that you just can't explain. It doesn't just take your peace. It can distort your perception of love, of safety, of the feminine itself. And that's one of the deepest wounds, learning to trust again, not just others, but yourself. For almost 2 years, I lived alongside a woman who wore innocence as a mask, but thrived on destabilizing me. She did it quietly. She did it slowly. Things would move around behind my back. She often praised me in front of others while undermining me in private. It was so subtle, so insidious, that I began questioning my own reality and my own sanity. I didn't want to seem ungracious or paranoid or dramatic, so I just swallowed it up. But my body, it kept the score. I started experiencing energy burns, dreams, visions, warnings. My nervous system was screaming the truth that I had been trying to silence. And the hardest part, people that I thought I could trust, they couldn't see what was happening to me. Some even defended her. Some even told me that I should apologize to her. And even when my intuition was red hot and my heart in agony, I was told to stay professional, to keep the peace, to question myself, that I was the problem. And especially painful was that gaslighting from those who were closest to the situation. those that I hoped might just have my back. Their silence had stung more than any accusation could. And this is the distorted feminine, and when she gets others on her side, it can create a toxic storm that can ravage the soul of someone who tries to stay anchored in light, love, peace. So I carried it all, and at times it nearly broke me. She wasn't just playing psychological games. She was weaving a web of sabotage that touched every part of my life. The mind games were relentless, daily manipulations that left me constantly second-guessing myself. But it went deeper than emotional warfare. It went darker. So she started to tamper with my personal information. She accessed my accounts, my sense of security. So porn sites started appearing on my credit card statements and in my digital algorithms. Things that I would never search for, things that I would never consent to. And she pretended to be supportive to people who asked about me, but only to withhold crucial information from me, like meetings that I was meant to attend. She stole my identity, literally. She created fake sexualized accounts in my name. And if I didn't play her game, if I dared to step out of line, to question the narrative, to simply say no, I was met with a level of rage that bordered on psychotic. It was like flipping a hidden switch. Her entire demeanor, it would shift in an instant, but only when no one else was watching. And that was part of her power, her ability to perform this wonderful sweetness for the world while unleashing something far more venomous in private with me. The bite back was swift and sharp. It was emotional whiplash. One moment she would be charming, one moment I thought she had my back, and the next moment, just this unasked for cruelty. The kind of cruelty that wasn't loud, but it was surgical. It was designed to cut deep in ways that others just couldn't see. There were moments I would never forget, like the times I turned my back to walk away. I turned back around to face her unexpectedly, and there she'd be, her eyes locked onto my back, staring daggers into me. Her face, it was twisted in a kind of contempt that felt inhumane. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did, and it still haunts me. And that look, it wasn't just anger. It was the rage of someone who had lost control over a narrative that she thought she had mastered. And once you see that mask drop, even for a second, you can never unsee it. She invaded every boundary that I had. She went through my personal belongings. She entered my private space without permission, and she crossed lines that no one ever should. I once found, and this sounds dramatic, a dead bird that was placed among my things, and that is an image that I'll never forget. So whether it was meant as intimidation or maybe a message, it shook me to my core. She would drip feed me these small, seemingly harmless narratives, these petty, subtle comments that were meant to make me question the intentions of the people around me. And over time, those seeds of doubt, they grew, and I began second-guessing everybody around me. And that's how deep her manipulation ran. It was slow, it was deliberate. and it was designed to isolate me. And behind the scenes, she played both sides. To some, she painted me as untrusting, forgetful, incapable, and even at times unfair. But to others, she praised me like I was everything. It was calculated chaos, designed to keep me isolated, confused, and constantly defending myself. I could talk for hours and still not cover everything that happened, but these are just a few of the heavier things that I remember because they've left marks on me that I'm still trying to heal. I have been having these healing sessions to cut the cords, and in my last session, a giant sword was removed from my heart along with lots of mini daggers. I viscerally felt them leave, the old betrayals that I had dismissed or internalized, leaving my body, and I began to see it for what it was. It was not a personal failure, but it was a collective wound, and this is the power of distorted feminine energy. This is what she can do. It sees the light and it seeks to dim it because it cannot yet hold its own. It seeks proximity to power, but it resents it. It performs love, but it feeds on fear. It wears sweetness while spreading shame. And if you're someone that is holding the divine feminine or the divine masculine energy, an energy that is reverent, open-hearted, grounded in love, who is kind, trust me, she will find you and she will test you. But here's the truth, it will never break you. So if you're reading this or if you're listening to this and you've been through it, know that you're not alone. You're not crazy, and that's not your fault. Also, I deeply stress this. If you have unknowingly aligned with a distorted feminine energy, know that your discernment is your power, and it's never too late to see clearly. How do you begin to heal once you release yourself from the web? Well, healing after this kind of sabotage, it isn't just about moving on. It's about reclaiming what was taken, your clarity, your self-trust, your voice. So to heal from this is to choose to rise, not with rage, but with revelation. And I share this topic and my own personal experience, not to vilify, but to illuminate. Because I believe when we name the distortion, we reclaim our clarity. And when we tell the truth, even the shadow, it begins to lose its grip. So healing from this, it's not linear, and it isn't easy, but it is possible. So the first thing I would definitely do, it's important to name it. So clarity is your power, and when you name what happened without minimizing or rationalizing it, you reclaim your reality. The gaslighting, it loses its grip the moment that you call it what it is. Number 2, start to rebuild the trust with yourself. So start small. Your nervous system, it may be wired to doubt your intuition. So begin with micro decisions. Listen to your body. Pay attention to what gives you peace and what stirs your anxiety. Relearn how to trust your own internal signals. Number 3, allow yourself to grieve, not just the person, but the illusions, the version of love or the version of trust that you thought it was, the parts of you that were silenced or ignored. Give yourself permission to feel the betrayal, the confusion, and the anger. And forgive yourself fiercely for not seeing it sooner, for staying too long, for losing parts of yourself. You are not weak. You were just deceived, and you are healing now, and that is what matters. Number 4, reconnect with the sacred feminine. So exposure to distorted feminine energy, it often creates mistrust, not only in people, but in the feminine itself. A significant part of healing is about reconnecting to healthy, divine feminine energy within yourself and the world around you. An energy that's nurturing, empowering, and aligned. The kind that holds space, that doesn't manipulate. This will help you rewrite your inner blueprint of what feminine energy truly is. It should be warm, soft, wise, and life-giving. Something that really helped me was to connect with wise feminine archetypes. So I would meditate or journal on goddesses who embody strength and softness. Mary Magdalene, Oshan, Kuan Yin, they were all wonderful goddesses of divine feminine energy. Another thing that I love is to rewild and spend time in nature. Let nature teach you what it feels like to be held without expectation. Let the earth remother you. The divine feminine, she does not control, she simply flows, and she doesn't drain, she nourishes. So let Mother Earth show you who the divine feminine truly is. The next thing, number 5, is to protect your field. So boundaries, they're not walls, they're clarity. So don't apologize for protecting your peace. Let your no be sacred, because normal people will respect your no. And let your space be intentional. Number 6, don't heal alone. So allow yourself to talk to someone, to share, whether with a therapist, with a healer, or a safe friend. Talk about what was done in secrecy. Bring it to the light, and that's how you dissolve the shame and the confusion and bring back your power. Number 7, reclaim the body with somatic healing. When you've been exposed to manipulation and emotional chaos, your nervous system, it often becomes dysregulated, trapped in cycles of hypervigilance, freeze, or shutdown. So healing must begin in the body. So regulate your nervous system with breath work, with vagus nerve toning, or grounding rituals such as barefoot walking, cold water immersion, or maybe eating grounding foods like sweet potatoes, cinnamon, carrots, pumpkin, nuts or seeds. Also, trauma-informed movements such as yoga or intuitive dance. It helps you reconnect with the sensation and rebuild safety back in the body. Also using body scanning and tracking. So notice where you hold your tension when triggered. Acknowledge it without judgment and offer compassion to those parts. You see, the body, it keeps score. So let your body speak to you and then listen with tenderness. So how do you protect yourself from this distorted feminine energy? So if you've encountered this kind of energy, manipulative, covert, and emotionally corrosive, your first instinct might be to explain, to fix, or to reason with it. But the truth is, people operating from distorted feminine energy, they don't thrive on connection. They thrive on confusion and control. So protection must begin with your own clarity. So trust what your body is telling you. So if your gut, if it tightens and it clenches around someone, even when they're smiling, even when they're saying all the right things, pay attention to this. Just put it in your memory bank. Put it in your awareness. You see, your body, it often knows what your mind cannot yet name. Learn to stop engaging in her game. So if you notice her manipulation, if you notice some things that are just off, withdraw your emotional energy. So don't defend yourself, don't over-explain, don't try to win her over. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. So just remove yourself. I would also recommend documenting everything. So if sabotage is spilling into your personal or your professional life, just keep records, keep screenshots, messages, voice notes. You're not being paranoid, you're just protecting your peace. Set firm but clear boundaries. So this might mean physical distance, blocked communication, or confronting the truth in yourself about what you've allowed yourself to tolerate. Boundaries are not about punishing others, they're about honoring yourself. And most importantly, don't seek validation from people outside. They just haven't seen it. They can't see it. The distorted feminine energy, she knows how to play the game. And people who have not experienced this, they just won't get it. So just protect yourself, even if no one believes you. So healing from distorted feminine energy, it is a sacred return to truth. It's a journey from manipulation to clarity, from depletion to embodiment, from fragmentation to wholeness. And you are not alone in it. And you are not crazy. You are not weak. You are waking up. You are reclaiming yourself. And that is the most powerful thing that you can do. So to anyone who's walking through the wreckage of gaslighting, of spiritual sabotage or betrayal, take heart. You're not alone, and your truth, it is your medicine. Healing from this kind of experience, it isn't about rushing to move on. It's about rebuilding yourself from the inside out, repairing your nervous system, your mind, your spirit, and your soul. It's about learning that you are the safest place that you know. It's about reclaiming your softness, your intuition, and your own sacred fire without apology. You see, you didn't deserve what happened to you, but you absolutely deserve the healing that follows. So I hope today's post, it's a little different to normal, something deeply personal to me. I hope it has served you in some way, has given you some strength, something to think about, maybe something to name. And if you have been fortunate enough to have not brushed up against this type of energy, I hope that if you do, you know how to protect yourself, you know how to see it. Thank you for listening. The light in me bows to the light in you. Namaste.